We all have parts of ourselves we desperately want to change. Maybe you want to be more outgoing, stop procrastinating, or finally break a bad habit. But no matter how many books you read or promises you make, you end up right back where you started. You feel completely frozen. If you ask a therapist why this happens, the most common answer traces back to this man, Sigmund Freud. His approach is built on a concept called etiology, which is the study of causation. Applied to your mind, etiology means your current problems are the direct result of past events. If you have anxiety, it is because of a childhood trauma. If you are deeply insecure, it is because you were bullied years ago. The past is the cause. Who you are today is the effect. Taken to its logical extreme, this framework leaves us with determinism. If your present and future are entirely dictated by things that have already happened, you are essentially a biological machine. You are just outputting behaviors based on historical data programmed into you long ago. Under this lens, true change is impossible. You have no real agency over your actions. You are permanently bound by your history, forced to play out a script written by circumstances you couldn't control. But right around the same time Freud was developing his theories in early 20th century Vienna, another psychiatrist was working on an opposing idea. Alfred Adler was one of Freud's original colleagues, but he eventually split from the group because he rejected the premise that human beings are pushed along by their past experiences. Adler proposed a framework called teleology. Instead of looking backward at causes, teleology looks forward at purpose. It states that our behaviors and emotions aren't reactions to the past, they are actions we take to achieve a present goal. This diagram illustrates exactly how teleology swaps the order of our psychology. Take a person who suffers from such severe anxiety that they refuse to leave their house. The Freudian view says a past trauma created the anxiety, which now forces them to stay inside. Adler flips this completely. He argues that the person actually formed the goal of staying inside first, and then manufactured the feeling of anxiety to justify that goal. We see this same reversal in everyday interactions. Imagine a customer yelling at a waiter who spilled water on them. They might claim they just lost their temper, but teleology suggests the customer wanted to dominate the waiter and force an apology. To achieve that goal, they generated the tool of anger. We do not suffer from our experiences or negative emotions. We use them. We actively pull out anxiety, anger, or memories of trauma when they serve whatever hidden objective we are trying to reach in that exact moment. If we are the ones creating our own psychological roadblocks, we have to ask why. Why would you actively choose to invent paralyzing anxiety or destructive anger to keep yourself stuck? Adler traces this back to one sweeping claim. Absolutely all human problems, without exception, are interpersonal relationship problems. Think about it. If you existed entirely alone in the universe, with no one else around to observe you, the concept of feeling inferior would vanish. You wouldn't feel competition, embarrassment, or the need to impress anyone. Those burdens only exist because other people exist. When we step into society, we face the risk of being judged, rejected, or failing in front of others. To protect ourselves from that pain, we build defenses. We use past traumas as excuses, or we generate anxiety to avoid situations where we might be evaluated. That deep feeling of being stuck is actually an active defense mechanism. We are exhausting ourselves trying to secure societal recognition and approval, and using our own psychological symptoms as shields to avoid the sting of rejection. This diagram introduces Adler's systemic cure for escaping the desire for recognition. It is a mental framework known as the separation of tasks. It is designed to establish strict boundaries between your responsibilities and everyone else's. When faced with a decision, you apply the framework by asking, whose task is this? You figure this out by looking at who ultimately bears the real-world consequence of the choice. If you are deciding on a career path, the result of that choice falls entirely to you. That is your task. If your parents feel disappointed by your choice, that is their task. You have to step completely out of managing how others react to you. You do not intervene in their tasks, and you actively block them from crossing the boundary to dictate your internal life choices. Applying this rule comes with an immediate, unavoidable consequence. When you successfully separate tasks, the people who are used to controlling you, or who expect you to live for their approval, will get upset. You will be disliked. Being disliked by someone is not a symptom of social failure. It is the necessary price of admission for living authentically. It is the proof that you are exercising your freedom and living by your own rules. True happiness does not come from being universally loved or from satisfying the expectations of the crowd. It comes from the quiet, subjective feeling of contributing to others on your own terms, armed with the radical courage to be disliked.